Since governments have existed, they have sought to control everything from the weather to oral sex to lawn darts, even time itself. But especially and most consistently, they have sought to control the roads. And they've been as thorough as a deep cavity search. While most of the money and power that governments are able to get for their sponsors comes from war and banking, control of the infrastructure seems to be how they have us by the ballots. Would you vote for a politician who wants everything exactly as you would like, except for the roads? If you thought that the violent monopoly that is government is the only way to build the roads, of course not. But what does it mean when someone bleats, "We cannot do this without government"? When you understand what government is the same as saying, as a society, we are incapable of figuring this out peacefully and must turn to the coercion and violence of government. Do you think we, as a community, as a society, as a nation, as a species, need to point guns at each other in order to figure out where the roads are going to go and who is going to build them? Really? And yet the statists think that this is the ultimate trump card against libertarians. They think that this is the ultimate backstop for their justification of government. But to hear them say, "But who will build the roads?" is like the slave owner saying, "But who will pick the cotton?" Really? But without government, who will build the roads? Who could possibly figure out this mind-bending technology? People. You ever hear the joke about communism and breadlines? There were once two old ladies standing in a Russian breadline, and one of them turns to the other and says, "Can you believe that crazy place, America? Their government doesn't even give their people bread." Can you explain traffic jams, oh great fan of government? Guess what? Every time you are waiting in traffic, you are standing in a government line. Okay, maybe sitting comfortably in an air-conditioned bubble while you're being fed propaganda through a government-controlled radio station. You are standing in a government line to go somewhere that the government is preventing people from going to by providing radically inadequate infrastructure. Why? No competition. Same as any monopoly. What's the incentive to provide better service when your customers have no alternative? What is the incentive to actually make peace when war is so much more profitable for government sponsors? What is the incentive to keep cops from abusing people when governments need them to beat up protesters without hesitation? Why actually help poor people when the more poor people there are, the more excuses government has to steal from the not quite poor people to help them? Perhaps a better question for us libertarians would be, but without government, who will build the potholes? There's nothing wrong with road technology itself. Yes, compared to some, it's not the most environmentally friendly, but can you imagine? Can you name any other technical area in which we have been stuck in the same paradigm for 100 years? Since the dawn of the automobile, we have stayed with the same basic concept of four wheels, driven by an internal combustion engine, spinning rubber wheels down paved roads. Can you imagine if computers still had punch cards? Or if we were just getting pocket calculators today because the government had been busy subsidizing the abacus industry? When you were a little kid, didn't you think we'd all have flying cars by now? If it wasn't for government paying for the roads and removing accountability for environmental damages, they would at least have evolved differently. We might have built more walking and bike paths and laid out communities differently. Maybe saving big roads for long distances with a greater emphasis on the efficiency of mass transit and at least some accountability to the principles of efficiency. Well, what do you think happened to the auto industry? In no other field except war have we seen such massive government spending for the benefit of private interests. In no other field except banking have we seen such a massive ripoff. Can you imagine if the government said for any other industry, "Oh, you need some infrastructure for that? Hey, don't worry, we'll steal from the taxpayers to pay for it." Oh, you want to make some pornography? Well, we know how important porn is to millions of people. We'll pay for your studios and your cameras and your websites. You just show up and fornicate. We'll take care of the rest. And if you think you're going to throw the public good nonsense excuse at me, don't think that I can't prove that porn is just as much a public good as the roads by your definition. Governments have paid for the roads, subsidized the oil industry, and protected the auto industry with corporatist policies for 100 years in a way that has made competition and evolution impossible and kept us stuck in this 100-year-old technological paradigm. But don't worry, the truth is out now. The facts have been laid bare and are undeniable. Without government, peaceful people would build the roads, but only if that's all we can come up with. If government hadn't grounded the burrito bombers and the taco copters because drone technology just isn't safe enough yet, compared to cars, we'd probably have drone taxis by now. Yeah, little quadcopters, big ones in the sky, solar powered, coming down, dropping down little baskets, or luxury lounges and just pulling them up into the sky. Yeah, come on. I'm not talking about anything we don't already have the technology for. You got to ask yourself why. When you see the situation, do you ever stop and go, geez, well, why is it this? Why is it that we have the technology for electric cars and for flying drones and all of these amazing, and they're just not here, they're not implemented, like they only exist in government labs or wherever these technologies are being sequestered by corporations with intellectual property? Crap, really? Cars and roads as we know them should be obsolete. So, dear statist, your final argument against freedom is that you don't know who will build the roads? You're not willing to bravely step off into the unknown of a more peaceful way of creating infrastructure? You can't imagine something new and different? You can't imagine escaping dependence on Big Brother? You're not willing to stop and think hard enough to escape the current paradigm? You think it's easier to deal with the theft and the wars and the ripoffs and the scams and the police state and the politicians than to simply think for just a minute and accept the conclusion, maybe things will be better if we figure out a non-violent way to build the roads? Don't worry. Have courage. Take comfort in the fact that humanity marches on. A better way is coming. A better world is on its way. Sooner or later, along with all forms of violence and coercion, governments will be obsolete. And where we're going, we're not going to need roads, baby. Because Adam versus the Man is back on the air. That's right. Thank you so much for joining us. Today is Monday, April 7th. Yeah. An historical date to remember for the ages. AVTM 4.0 was back on the air. Thank you so much for everybody who's joining us right now at adamversustheman.com/live watching the show. We really appreciate it. We're going to get the chat back in the on that page pretty soon here, hopefully this week. Really appreciate it. We got some amazing guests on the show today. And actually, unintentionally, kind of by accident, I mean, there's no such thing as an accident in the world of Stefan Molyneux. We are far too rational, are we not? At least those of us who believe in that particular strain of rational thought. He's going to be joining us in just 20 minutes here, and he's going to be evaluating my OkCupid.com profile. Well, when we get him on, I'll explain why we're doing this and how that came to be. We also have the outlaw Josie Wales, Josie theoutlaw.com. Really excited about having her on as well. And then Mike Adams, the health ranger. I mean, this is just such an awesome lineup for the first show. I'm really excited about this. Now, Mike has been doing some really exciting original lab work with food contamination and heavy metals. And, it doesn't take much to be like, yeah, hey, guys, did you stop to look at what you were eating? And he does so much good work in that. So anyway, we are coming to you from our new studio in sunny Los Angeles, California. So if you're wondering why I'm sweating in here, it's a little warm. We're getting this is our first complete show. We did a warm up a week ago on Sunday. If you want to check that out, you can see that at adamversustheman.com/podcast. You can use the interactive player there. We're looking for interns right now. If you ever want to come and help us out, just gather information for the show in the morning. It's a lot of fun. I mean, we sit here and joke and BS and just talk about fun stories, what we want to see covered on the show. If you want to be a part of that, this is part of what we want to do to make the show a much better experience for you. Like I said before, in the past, the show was, really a fraction of what it should have been because of poor organization, inconsistent production values. We want to bring you the show that you deserve. If you want to be helpful in that process, if you want to come and be a part of that, please email me, Adam at adamversustheman.com. We're also looking for sponsors for the show. That's right. If you want to reach the Adam versus the Man audience, give us some money and we'll do it for you. Well, I mean, I'll paint your company's logo on my chest and strip naked during the show if that, I mean, well, okay, that's not on our normal sponsor or advertising list, but I'm trying to make the point where we're flexible. We're agorists here. We negotiate. We're gonna let's talk. Let's do business. And we do have an important announcement about the corporate structure of the show. As sort of a matter of disclosure, right? That we all work for Disney now, technically. Maker Studios is our partner network with YouTube, and they were just acquired by Disney for $950 million. Now, I have to put a little caveat on this about Adam versus the Man. It's very tongue-in-cheek to say I work for Disney, or that Stan Cruz here, our wonderful new producer, is working for Disney before he thought he would be, or that Jeffrey Phillips here, who is holding the team together right now, is somehow in league with Mickey Mouse. It's kind of a scary idea, right? I mean, of all people, Jeffrey Phillips. But it is an important disclosure because YouTube revenue is not an insignificant part of our income for the business Adam versus the Man, for keeping us on the air. But it is not nearly as significant as the donations and the support that come from the audience. And I mean the donations that just financial that come through the website are essential to keeping the lights on here, to keeping people coming in every day. And we really appreciate people who donate Bitcoin and Litecoin as well. Yes, I don't care what the IRS says. It's all fungible value. And if people are accepting it as money, guess what? Sorry, government, it's money. So, while, yes, we are subject to the corporate whims of Disney for the small part of what we do that is actually really dependent on the YouTube channel, we are part of Maker Studios, but we are independent because we are accountable first and foremost to our donors and our sponsors and you in the audience who care about the show and who care about this message. So, we're actually part of the new media establishment, and I've been seriously involved as a YouTuber, although I don't really think of myself as that, for a few years now, and just in the last few years to see what started, when YouTube came about and was like, hey, we've got this technology, holy crap, we can do this, we can process video, we can host unlimited video, we can do it all for you for free, holy crap, the technology's there. YouTube now is the destination website for this on the internet. Well, great. Thanks to corporatism and everything else, we've seen the consolidation of resources in every other way. And we saw, YouTube got bought by Google, and now this one partner network is being bought by Disney that's getting in on this production game. And it would be a little too much to hope that in the pre-internet world of media domination and corporatism that all right, now the internet's here and it's all going away. No, the internet came and challenged it, and then is now getting kind of co-opted and is becoming the new media establishment. Still better than the old media establishment, delivering better goods and services to you, the viewer. But, with YouTube is hanging off government's nuts like a life raft when it comes to intellectual property. And the way they're just the MPAA and all of that, it's all pretty predictable. So don't think that the internet is just this perfectly free conversation. There is some poison in the water, but we are part of it, and we all deal with it. And unless you don't drive on government roads, don't talk shit. All right, send your love mail as always to Adam at adamversustheman.com. Today's big breaking story is that Reverend Al Sharpton is an FBI informant, was an FBI informant. Who really cares about the details? I'd like to say I'm not surprised, and I'm really not at some level. Like, this is not, oh, geez, I mean, if you know Al Sharpton, I mean, if you've read his Wikipedia page, really, like, does it come as any surprise that this is how he got to where he is now? I can't say, oh yeah, I expected that, because I'm not a Sharpton expert, and there have been leaks about this in the past. But I heard the story this morning. I'm like, okay, well, that explains a lot, doesn't it? I mean, Al Sharpton, and talking trash about Al Sharpton right now would be too easy. I mean, everybody on the radio right now, everybody online is going, oh, Al Sharpton, snitch. And it's like, okay, he was CI7, confidential informant 7, and you really think that, like, anybody, trying to excuse him, going, oh, well, he's a snitch, that's good. We believe in law and order and working for government. You think Al Sharpton one day was like, well, I'm a reverend. I'm a godly man. It is time that we get all of these crack dealers and get this crack epidemic off the streets of New York. I know what I'm going to do. I am going to befriend some mobsters. Yes, I am going to befriend some high-level drug dealers, and I'm going to go to the FBI, and I'm going to tell them all about it, and I'm going to say, oh yes, I'd like to wear a wire. Really? No, it doesn't happen that way. The dude was caught. And I'm not here to talk trash about that, like him actually providing a legitimate service. Because, I mean, like I said, you want to talk trash about Al Sharpton. This is the guy who's used homophobic slurs, who's been anti-Semitic. Who took a sponsorship deal from Loanmax, which is this company that really, really makes money from screwing over poor people. To the Tawana Brawley controversy. I mean, there's just like one thing after another, and then you see Al Sharpton at the White House. You see him like shaking hands with the president. Like you see him on MSNBC. You see all of these like just major state events. He's Obama's go-to guy. He's America's reverend. Really. Here's what he had to say about Mormons. This is going back to 2007 about Mitt Romney. As for the one Mormon running for office, I mean, maybe he's being clever, but like, who really talks that way? I mean, this is a guy that's just full of it. As for the one Mormon running for office, those who really believe in God will defeat him anyway. So don't worry about that. That's a temporary situation. Now, please don't get me started on organized religion and the hypocrisy that it represents. But, our God is better than your God, therefore somebody who believes in our God is going to be president and is going to tell you and the rest of the world how it's going to be. Really? And people fall for it. I mean, it's pretty successful, long-standing racket. And he said back, and this was back in his fat days, back when Reverend Al was fat. I don't want to talk shit about that. I want to talk shit about him being skinny now. It's part of his reawakening, his reimaging. It's great. You've been fat all your life. You get skinny. Great. Good for you. Al Sharpton looks like he doesn't know how to be thin. Do you see that in his face? It's like there's the extra skin. It's just like he's uncomfortable in his body. It's like he was happier being fat. I mean, I don't know. But what he said, and he's talked about this in the past, all the stuff about the FBI has come out before, or at least not like today, but various parts of it. And he said that they were trying to entrap a young minister who just so happened to be talking to coke dealers and mob bosses and Don King and all these other shady characters in New York. Yeah, the FBI, they just love going after those good young ministers that have nothing better to do than, fight the crack epidemic in New York City. Right. Now, here's the interesting thing about this. One of the gangs, one of the mafia gangs, one of the families, they knew that he was an informant the whole time. Now, think about this for a second. If you're doing something bad and you get caught and you're the kind of guy that turns snitch, you're just showing how devoid of any kind of moral grounding you are. And this really, again, explains Sharpton like nothing else. You go, okay, yeah, Makes perfect sense. Wow. That's how we got to where he is today. And it's this mentality of duping people, of playing a game. And I have to think that if one gang knew that he was an informant, he was really working for them. Think about this for a second. You're an informant for the FBI, and you're wearing wires or carrying them in a briefcase to talk to mob bosses, and one of them knows you're an informant and the rest don't. Who the hell do you think you're really working for? And the fundamental scam at the bottom of all this is the same as government itself. Why does government go after organized crime? For the same reason that any organized crime organization goes after other organized crime organizations. And in organized crime, a guy like Al Sharpton can be very, very useful. And that is Reverend Al Sharpton explained. Now in Pakistan, they've been experiencing a bit of a bombs falling out of the sky, killing innocent people problem. Or as Obama would describe it, his drone policy. And from notabugsplat.com, and this is going out with the hashtag notabugsplat. I'm really excited to see this kind of creative anti-war activism. When you're in a war zone, and yeah, you're one of these places where innocent people just die out of the blue at random because some drone operator somewhere in Nevada pushed a button in some virtual cockpit and sent a predator missile down on someone. So this is from notabugsplat.com. In military slang, predator drone operators often refer to kills as bug splats, since viewing the body through a grainy video image gives the sense of an insect being crushed. To challenge this insensitivity as well as raise awareness of civilian casualties, an artist collective installed a massive portrait facing up in the heavily bombed Khyber Pakhtunkhwa region of Pakistan. And here it is. I want you guys to see this. This is a really interesting picture. You can see on the monitor behind me now that you have the portrait of an innocent child's face. So this installation is designed to be captured by satellites in order to make it a permanent part of the landscape on online mapping sites. So you can actually go and find this now. The project is a collaboration of artists who made use of the French artist JR's Inside Out movement. Reprieve/Foundation for Fundamental Rights helped launch the effort, which has been released with the hashtag #NotABugSplat. Please share the story, use it. We'll have the links in the description here. The child featured in the poster is nameless, but according to FFR, lost both her parents and 2 young siblings in a drone attack. An all too common story. The group of artists traveled inside KPK province and with the assistance of highly enthusiastic locals unrolled the poster amongst mud huts and farms. It is their hope that this will create empathy and introspection among the drone operators and will create dialogue amongst policymakers, eventually leading to decisions that will save innocent lives. Now, this would work if you had people, or at least it would work like this, if you had people operating these drones who weren't proud of murdering people. And they are. They are. Otherwise, they wouldn't still be doing it. They wouldn't be going to work every day, pushing the buttons, pulling the triggers, putting on the uniform, going home, taking that paycheck. There's something so much more deeper going on here. And I understand that the people putting up this picture are like, hey, you're killing children. Why don't you look at one? Great. There's something so much deeper going on here. And I can tell you as a former soldier, as a Marine, that when you're in that environment, when you're hurting people on behalf of government, you've already put some key element of your humanity aside in your mind. Empathy, sympathy, have to be pushed out of the way for the pride of murdering people, for the justification that allows that cognitive dissonance to thrive. And what this is doing, this picture right here, that will this work? I hope. Will drone operators see it? Will it save one life? Will one person sitting in a virtual cockpit have a change of heart at some point? If it does, it's all worth it. But I think anybody hearing this story who's in that situation, if you know someone, please, society suffers not because of the soldiers alone who go out and commit heinous acts, or the politicians or the police officers who brutalize people, but the families they come home to who support them. Please share the story with the people who are going to have the same effect that we hope this will have on the drone operators, because this really is powerful. Sticking your fingers inside their brain and wiggling them around and saying, hey, you really need to get your shit together, rearrange things a little bit, get your priorities straight, because you're killing innocent people. And that's the significance of this, and that is what is captured with this picture from Pakistan. So, just recently, we saw this survey released from the Pew Research Center. The era of reefer madness is over. And yes, as exciting as it is to be living at the end of the drug war, it's not over. And there's still a lot of innocent people being hurt. There's still millions of people behind bars throughout the world for innocent acts that are non-crimes that the government has made criminal as part of its racket. But this is a really, really fun survey here, and not just because it's all in these pink and purple color or green and purple colors here, but I in me being a bit of a drug snob, I like to point out to people, and it's funny to see people on online dating websites who put for alcohol, oh yes, occasionally, socially, frequently, I'm an alcoholic and I love it, and then drugs, never. Really? Please. Like, alcohol isn't a drug. And as we all know, at least I would hope anybody watching this who's, got access to the internet, that alcohol is more harmful than marijuana. There's no possible way, except when you introduce government into the equation, that you could justify marijuana being more dangerous than alcohol. And yet, as you see here, all of those little green bars represent people who believe that marijuana is more dangerous than alcohol. And it's these comparisons that are really different. And it's actually more men, slightly, than women who are misinformed. By racial breakdown, blacks are the best informed about this, not surprising, as they have unfortunately borne the brunt of the racism of the drug war. Then whites, then Hispanics, which is interesting. Hispanics are the most misinformed. And then this is what's really fun here. Among college graduates, okay, well, first, as you would suspect, if you're a Democrat, you're going to be better informed about this, better than independents, and far better than Republicans, who at about 2-to-1 believe that marijuana is more dangerous than alcohol compared to Democrats and independents. But this is what I found really, really fascinating. If you have a high school education or less, you're about the same as if you have some college to believe that marijuana is more dangerous. But if you have some graduate school, if you're in that higher educated category, you're more likely to think that marijuana is dangerous. Do you really think you're getting your money's worth out of higher education when the result is to be so radically misinformed that after 4 years and tens of thousands of dollars and all the money that is invested into it, and keeping college students in their safe little on-campus alcoholic bubbles, you're actually going to try to be you're going to be the guy at the party going, but wait a second, you're going to smoke pot? Everybody here's, but that's so dangerous. Yeah, educated dumb. But don't worry, the end of the drug war is coming. Our first guest today, and the first guest for AVTM 4.0, is none other than Stefan Molyneux of freedomainradio.com. The great tour of the colonies accent and forehead expanse from the north, from Kanukistan, is joining us today. And while we like to talk philosophy, I think we've covered that a few times. We've talked about the drug war. We've talked about achieving a free society. We've talked about war and foreign policy. Stefan, how about today you rate my OkCupid profile?
Well, of course, Adam, you're assuming that I haven't been following it very closely since the moment you put it up. As if I would be reading this for the first time now. when basically all it does is help me avoid candy and do sit-ups. So, yeah, I think that's a great idea. Like I just did a show where we went over a woman looking at a man's profile. We'll look at a man's profile.
I saw that podcast that you did. I watched the entire thing, and I was like, Stefan is having beautiful women on his show trying to figure out online dating. And this is like, who else would I want to attract other than, a fan of Stefan Molyneux? I don't, in fact, you know what? I think it's in my profile as a disqualifier. If you don't know who Stefan Molyneux is, don't talk to me. Is that something good to put in my profile?
Well, I mean, up here, of course, in the frozen igloo compound that is the Free Domain Radio mothership, we do have a large vat of the most vital and intelligent philosophy wenches of beauty that you can conceivably imagine. If you didn't find what you wanted from the Free Domain Radio harem of fertile women, you obviously have to cast your net a little bit wider and go into the general population. So I thought maybe we could just have a quick look at your profile and see how it goes.
Well, how am I doing here? Did you see the pictures? I got good pictures on there. That's what counts, right?
Yeah, and now my problem, of course, particularly the beach flex shots, I got a little confused because I thought I was just looking into my own webcam picture. So,
sorry about that. Sorry about that.
Yeah, I know, it's obviously challenging. So I just give you some thoughts, and then you can tell me what you think. So a passionate activist, that's your self-summary, certainly agree with that. Aspiring intellectual, I got to tell you that I would imagine a woman of quality, by the time you're 32, whatever you're doing, you shouldn't be aspiring at it anymore. You know what I mean? Like I'm 49 years old and I'm an aspiring actor. It's like, right? So I think you are an intellectual. I think you're trying to work both sides of the fence.
I was trying to be modest
intellectuals
there.
And anti-intellectuals. I'm sorry?
I was trying to be modest there.
Yeah, don't.
You're an intellectual. I tell fart jokes. I mean, come on.
No, false modesty is just another kind of hypocrisy. So, you say you're being very direct, so then be direct, because you say further down, you say direct, right?
You already caught me on a contradiction here. God damn it.
No. I mean, you're trying to play to the masses. So everybody who has gifts tries to downplay them, and the few people who don't end up making it through to the big leagues. So what I'm doing with my life, I'm building my business back from almost nothing and working hard to build the life I want now that I know what I want and how to get it. A little long and convoluted sentence. Certainly, there would be questions about building my business back from almost nothing. Was it hit by an asteroid? Was it the center of the Ebola outbreak? So there would be some questions around that. What you're working hard is, continue your activism, build your media presence, your online media presence. I wouldn't say back from almost nothing because you don't have any context for that. But it sounds like you narrowly escaped kidnapping from white slavers or something like that. So,
I didn't escape the kidnapping though. I was. No,
you did, and the white slavers are still heavily in business.
No, but I was in jail. And,
I know. That's what I mean. You did get kidnapped by white slavers, and unfortunately,
that's not true.
They're very legitimate white slavers.
Stefan, actually, that's not true. In D.C., most of the state apparatus is run by African Americans. Almost all of the guards, the vast majority of the well, I don't know about the majority, but a lot of the police and certainly the ones that were moving us back and forth to court, which is kind of ironic because you had black slavery and now we have the institutionalized slavery of modern government, and now the government has hired minorities to oppress themselves. It's a very neat racket.
My black brothers, don't you know we're trying to get rid of the income tax? Come on, join with me. Anyway. All right, so you say I'm really good at making people think. That sounds a bit coercive, like I corner them, shine bright lights in their eyes, and play Russian roulette.
Think or else.
Syllogism. Yeah. So provoking, especially because you have like the military photo at the beginning. So provoking or stimulating people to think. That sort of first things people usually notice about me. Unusual career path. I think that's fine. I'm not sure exactly why you have other media that you like other than mine. Obviously, that's just confusing as a whole.
Yeah, if you're a Stefan Molyneux fan, why would you listen to anything else? Are you not going to read that section of my profile because you're afraid of?
Okay. Favorite books. Okay, so Nonviolent Communication by Marcel Rosenberg, Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance, Zeitgeist, Super Size Me, good music, anything with pork. So obviously Congress. I will probably ask you out if you've read any of these.
Congress.
Ethics. And Adam, I like how you and I are on a last name basis. You have Ethics of Liberty or For a New Liberty by Murray Rothbard. anything by Konkin, anything by Molyneux, Economics of One Lesson, Henry Hazlitt, Resistance to Civil Government, Civil Disobedience, Let's Abolish Government, or No Treason, or anything by Lysandra Spooner. And obviously, you're putting things front and center, right? Let's abolish government. I'm an activist, so people will get a sense of that. I think that's very fine. 6 Things I Could Never Do Without. I think that's perfectly fine. I spend a lot of time thinking about how to make the world a better place, looking forward to being a dad. I think that's nice. Typical Friday nights at a rave on Pluto. That's good. Okay, so the most private thing I'm willing to admit, I have a bad habit of jumping into serious relationships too quickly. Now, Adam, why do you think you do that?
Wow. Jeez. Why do I do that? Sex.
Okay. Did it really take you that long to think of it?
No, it took me that long to think. Can I say that obviously on the air just like that? No, but it's I think it's sort of like, why did I do that? And I did because I'm not doing that now, and
right.
and this is part of a very deliberate process of me going, okay, I went through this in the last year. I was raided. I went to jail. I spent time in solitary. I went through a breakup with the same person twice, or depending on how you count it, 9 or 10 times. And I feel like since I was. Okay, now this is already the Adam Kokesh therapy hour. All right, so I thought that I was, I knew what I wanted when I was in like my early mid-20s, and it was just like, oh, okay, we get along. We can go on 2 or 3 dates, and I can stand you for more than 15 minutes. Let's move in and see if it works. And it's just like, all right, I want, and I'm. One of the things that I say, about this last year is that I've matured in ways that I didn't think were possible, and I've gained a certain old man patience, and I feel like I can finally be more patient about that. But it was a sort of, it was 2 things. One was the impatience, and the other is, I want to say it's. The typical thing is a discomfort with being single. And I'm not uncomfortable being alone or being single. I feel like I'm a complete person. I'm just much happier, or feel like my life is more complete, or I have what I want when I have a female companion, and all of that goes along with being in a committed relationship, even if it's not the perfect one that is going to last forever. It's those sort of like not quite long-term indulgences that I really want. It's and yeah, regular sex is certainly a part of it. I won't lie or try to obscure that or wring my hands over it too many more times to call any more attention to that. But the having someone that you can talk to, having someone to cuddle with, to always be there, to call you on your own bullshit, to be there, to be a partner and a best friend, and
someone to bounce ideas off, to improve yourself, to see the parts of you that you can't see yourself.
Absolutely.
So my suggestion would be, because you say I have a bad habit, which I think would be a red flag, because it's like you're still doing it. Which of course, right. So I had a bad habit, and I would say even just a sentence that you could put out in terms of why, because you want to show a woman that you have self-knowledge, that you've examined your life, you've figured out your mistakes, and you're working for them. And of course, given that you want kids now, you can't afford another breakup, right? You don't want to get married and then have a breakup, or you don't want to have kids with someone and then have a breakup. It's bad for the kids, it's bad for everyone, right? So, now you have new standards because you're looking for long-term. You examined this bad habit, and here's what you figured out. So I think you want to show a woman your progress towards self-knowledge, because right now it just sounds like, I have a bad habit. Let's jumping into serious relationships too quickly. Message me.
Come indulge me. You're right.
So you want to put that in the pot.
Okay. Makes a lot of sense.
I thought the rest was great. I thought it was really nice. Black belt or higher in cuddling. I thought that was very cute. The photo. So
I have a black belt in cuddling, by the way.
I understand
with 2 red stripes. So I'm just I'm operating at that level, and I expect that standard to be met.
Do you know, oddly enough, Adam, who's only at yellow belt is Joe Rogan. I thought he would be higher, but
you got a little cuddling in? That's why he was
intimidated
by me, and we didn't get to cuddle after I was on. Right. That explains it. All right.
So the picture you have at the front conveys a huge amount of information, right? You're mic'd, you've got Iraq veterans against the war, you got the military hat on. and so on, right? So this communicates a huge amount, right? That you were in the military, that you're now against the war, and so on. That may be a lot of information to point at someone without context, right? So, like, I mean, when I met my wife, she was not an atheist, but she's trained in science, she's really good at logic, so it didn't take long to sort of help her across the divide, right? But the more information you put forward without context, the more you may be eliminating people who will listen to the arguments but don't understand the perspective without the context. Does that make any sense?
Yeah, so I might be narrowing the field unnecessarily. I need better pictures.
You may be, because when people hear the causes that you're into in conversation with you, I think that's really great. And I had a couple of thoughts about the photos, so I'm just going to skip over to there. Yeah, so I think that now the photo of you giving blood at the VA.
Oh, come on. What lady doesn't like a guy who goes and gives blood, right? I mean,
I know.
I got kids, I got dogs, I got giving blood, I got right?
I get it. It's like, here's a picture of me helping an old lady cross the street. Here's a picture of me giving CPR to a kitten that fell out of a tree. Like, it's just.
Should I put that one up too? Because I can do that.
Guy. And it seems a bit manipulative. That was just sort of my thought.
My pictures are too good. Is that what you're trying to say? My pictures are too good. It's like people are going to assume it's too good to be true. It's false advertising. Okay.
Look, you are a good guy. It's not false advertising at all. It seems a bit self-consciously positive. Here's me giving money to orphans. If you do that kind of stuff, it'll come across when people talk to you.
It's overselling.
Look, you have a great build and all that, but my concern is that you're going to get, the tube stake riders, right? The man whore pursuers, because your build is so good, right?
Unfortunately, I haven't yet.
You got a nice picture, not the best fitting suit, but that's all right. I think if you're going to say that you're against the war, showing pictures of you in the war is kind of confusing. Because basically you're saying the war was a bad episode in my life, it was a negative thing, it's something that I'm not happy about, and here's pictures of me at war.
Okay.
Now, who is the bronze cast Barbie who's on your shoulder?
Another ex.
Yeah.
It was her modeling shoot that day.
I got it. And you guys both look fantastic, but my suggestion would be that you may not want to put pictures of ex-girlfriends in your dating profile to meet a new woman.
Yeah, well, I was thinking that showing that, because you can't tell like from the photo. I mean, it's obviously a very staged photo, right? It's obviously like, hey, this is part of a photo shoot or something like that. And seeing that there's this babe on my shoulder doesn't go, oh, well, that's his girlfriend. But I kind of was hoping that would deter women who are insecure. That if they were like, oh, well, he's with this really hot babe, he's not going to be cool with me. That would be a positive way of screening women.
Well, no, but what it says to me is, if she was your girlfriend, then obviously she's no longer your girlfriend.
Right.
Which means that you weren't personally compatible.
It doesn't say that in the photo.
Means you chose her for her looks.
Oh, all right.
Right? Which
okay.
means that you choose women for their looks, even if they're not emotionally compatible. And given the fact that you have a nice build, there seems to be a certain amount of shallow vanity in some of the photos, which may be a turn-off to women who are looking for all the depth that you're obviously capable of.
Well, no, this is part of a bigger question, and I really I wonder about this, because not only am I on OkCupid.com, which as far as I can tell is like the most in-depth dating website for compatibility. I mean, you can answer hundreds of questions, and I'm not here to give some endorsement. I know there are competitors that are also great, but I'm also on the shallowest dating website possible. It's not even a website. It's a phone application called Tinder, and all you do, you get one paragraph, and you get to look at 6 photos. And I've had a few dates from this, but you're able, as you so aptly point out already, you're able to communicate an incredible amount of information from pictures. And this is one of these online dating, just old themes, like, oh, well, it's all about the pictures, or if it's not, what. But for guys who are looking at pictures, if you're a guy looking for a woman online, do you have guidelines? Because I mean, obviously you have a certain standard of attractiveness or whatever, but like I'll eliminate women who I find very attractive if their photos are, conveying something like you point out? Is there something to, this is how I'm presenting myself visually, and that's enough to evaluate someone with?
Yeah, oh, absolutely, yeah. And so the question is, well, why are you having a picture? Well, you're showing your muscles, you're showing that you have a very attractive woman on your shoulder, that would have dated this woman at some point, and you're obviously no longer dating her. But I think that communicates a lot to a woman. It will be intimidating for a woman who's not that physically attractive. And of course, with physical attractiveness, there's some stuff that's under our control, obviously, and there's some stuff that isn't, right? So obviously, to some degree, your body type and weight is under your control, and your level of exercise. I mean, the woman's got great facial bone structure, which is not under anyone's control or whatever, right? So my concern would be, like, it looks like, wow, look how gorgeous we are, but we're not together anymore, and I'm looking for something more serious. But if you're looking for something more serious, I think the cheesecake shots of look how gorgeous we are.
You don't need to point that out.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, now let me turn the conversation to a slightly broader subject, if I may, because the issue of
wait, are you saying broader than your pectorals? Hang on. Okay, go ahead.
No, I was referring to a different part of my anatomy, but thank you. No, the theme in the libertarian movement of being very self-conscious, hey, we have a lot of men, we're a male-dominated movement. I think that's true about politics in general, but even more so within the liberty movement. And the theory that I think is, I mean, there are a lot of theories about, minorities and women being better protected by government or more thoroughly propagandized or what have you. And I, all of that's certainly, has some contributing factor here. But there's also a problem with the kind of men that make up the liberty movement. And I actually was flirting with a woman online who had gone on a date with a libertarian. And when she found out that I was a libertarian, was like, no, sorry. The last guy I dated who was libertarian said he hated poor people and was, totally uncompassionate and didn't get, and I'm like, no, wait. To me, libertarianism is universal nonviolence. Can we? No, really? And she was offended by this. And I think there's maybe this isn't the silver bullet for a stateless society, but is there something we could do to grow the movement perhaps, or bring more women in as libertarian men by being better men?
Well, I think, that's a big question. Do you mind if we finish the profile and we jump into that?
Did you have something else you had to point out in my picture?
Yeah, so obviously I like the butt shot. It is my wallpaper. But now the gun is an interesting question, right? There are, I would imagine there's more women uncomfortable with gun ownership than men. And of course, there's nothing to be, there's no problem. It's a perfectly fine thing to do. But I think a shot of a you with a gun, given your military background, may convey a certain attitude that, again, without context, without understanding, may be alienating some people. It's, again, just a thought. I love the shot of you in your studio, though. I think that's really great. So those are just some of the thoughts. And I know that it's pretty tight. Like, I didn't join, so I don't know everything else that's going on. But, I think you want to show that you are, passionate, curious. Discussing conclusions can be a challenge, because conclusions without context can turn people off. Like, a lot more people are atheists than who think they're atheists, and way more people are libertarian than who think that they're libertarians. So, like, you say to someone, "Are you a libertarian?" They'll say no, and then you sort of go through the questions that define libertarianism.
Oh,
and most
hey, guess
of them
what?
end up being that way.
Yeah, right.
So listen, as far as bringing more women into the movement, I think that men could work to make themselves a little bit more attractive in the libertarian movement. Sometimes it does look like it's Attack of the Michelin Men, or beluga people. Sometimes looking across the libertarian landscape, I think that work on personal hygiene, a little self-presentation, exercise, that kind of stuff, I think is really good for men. But I think basically we need to listen to women more. Like, I do call-in shows, as 6 hours a week. Get bunches of women calling in, and they want to talk about things like relationships and marriage and kids and family and those kinds of things. That tends to be a little bit more, and libertarianism doesn't really address all that stuff. It's all bang your head against the columns of the Fed until you pass out and they drag you off. So I think that opening ourselves up more to talk about things like child raising and relationships, nutrition, health, and some of the stuff that you talk about too, I think is helpful. Women's magazines are different from men's magazines, and they know their audience in a way that I don't think libertarianism really really follows that much. So I think and that's sort of what I'm sort of looking at, trying to look at this from the perspective of a woman. Because if you wanted a woman in the libertarian movement, you wouldn't have an OkCupid profile, right? You'd basically look around the libertarian movement and try and find women there. But this is coming from, Blue Pill Planet, right? And so I think it's important to talk about, how well you think and how curious you are and so on. But talking about the conclusions without the context, without people getting to know who you are, I think can be challenging for people and might get someone who's intellectually curious but who thinks that you already know it all and that they don't have anything to add might be a turn-off. That's just sort of my thoughts about it.
Well,
it's a good profile, though.
Stefan, thank you so much, and best of luck with your new business venture as an online dating coach for libertarians. Really appreciate it, and I hope
Libertarian Love Doctor. I used to do shows like that, but I don't know. My pleasure.
I hope that there's a whole host of broader takeaways from this conversation as well about how we present ourselves to others based on who we are and what we want to attract. And I think that has some implications, not just for the many men and women of the movement, but also for the movement itself relating to people that don't consider themselves a part of it yet. So thank you so much for joining us today.
You're welcome.
Ladies and gentlemen, Stefan Molyneux, freedomainradio.com. From dailytech.com by Jason Mick. Cities to carpoolers, sharing your car is illegal. We will seize your cars. Now, the taxi protection racket has been a really old one for government, where they say if you're going to drive on government roads, you have to get our permission. If you're going to be doing business on government roads, you have to have a license. And in New York, it's $1 million for a medallion that you put on your taxi to make it actually legal to, engage in this crazy activity of, letting someone pay you to drive them from somewhere to somewhere else. So, this has been a problem with Tesla Motors, the same kind of protectionism recently, where electric vehicles are banned for sale because of the protection by dealerships. Because Tesla does all direct sales, and so dealerships have been saying, "Oh, well, it's different. We can ban it." Yeah. Well, it's the exact same thing here with taxis versus, Uber and Lyft and Sidecar. And this basic concept, ride sharing, carpooling is really at the heart of this. And you can get these apps now. They're cloud-driven ride sharing services. And I think it's really important as consumers that if you have the chance, if you use taxis, stop. Like, why? You're giving money to the government. Whenever you get in a taxi. Now, I'm not trying to say that this is like somehow unique to this particular industry or this particular consumer behavior, but especially with taxis, when you're in New York, how do you think they pay for that $1 million government badge on the car? From your fare dollars. Yeah, they go into that. And so when you can escape that and say, you know what, I'm going to give my money to someone who's not going to give as much of it to government, you're really making an important decision as a conscientious consumer in taking a stand against government violence, because that's what this is. And in California here, where these companies are, they're all based in San Francisco, Sidecar, Uber, and Lyft at least. They've had a kind of free market approach at least in saying, well, we're going to let them go. We're not going to regulate them at the state level, but at the city levels, a lot of people are doing this. And this article states, the funny thing is that many cities supported ride sharing as part of eco-conscious initiatives when it was on a smaller scale and largely greenwashing. But once it expanded and money became involved, many cities had seen enough. We got to kind of unpack this for a second because this is so insightful. So if you're a politician at the city level and people are going, we're going to do ride share, we're going to reduce pollution in the city, we're going to be more efficient. And already, you're not thinking, well, hey, that's going to be less money for taxis, right? Well, if it's that, you can say, yeah, let's support it. We're green, we're eco-conscious, woohoo, and they'll support it. But then when they go, okay, now we're going to do it so efficiently that we don't need taxis anymore. Well, we get a lot of money from taxis. We have this whole taxi protection racket thing going on. We can't possibly let you threaten the business. And this is just where this is going now in the crackdown is insane. And I'm really encouraged by stories like this because they affect such a wide part of the population, and everybody can latch on to this. Everybody can see this. It's not like you have to understand economics. It's not like you have to explain a ton of difficult principles. It's like, no, Government is shutting down this new industry because it's competing with an old industry. And, again, the classic example is, can you imagine if the government said, oh, no, we can't allow automobiles. We have to protect the horse and buggy industry. I mean, like, that's exactly what the equivalent of this is. And now that it's happening in the age of the internet, where it's happening so fast, and the contrast between, the free market and government-controlled market is so obvious. I hope people can look at this and go, wow, well, when you get government out of the way, you can have innovation and progress and all of this other stuff. In 2013, the Philadelphia Parking Authority, a city authority that derives its revenue from taxicab licensing, decided it was time to put a stop to the business which hadn't paid its toll. And it conducted a sting, seizing cars, ticketing drivers, and shutting down the operation. As a PPA spokesman, Marty O'Rourke said, sidecar drivers are passing themselves off as taxis, and they're not. It's clearly not about technology. What? Okay, no. They're passing themselves off as taxis. So? Is the legal definition of taxi under threat here? Are the consumers too dumb to figure out what's going on? Really? Like, that's your justification for stealing people's property? He goes on, the sting was an operation to impound vehicles because they were operating illegally. If we find them out there again, we'll impound them again. If you threaten our protectionist monopoly, we will steal your property. Likewise, Austin, Texas saw an outcry from taxi cab drivers who successfully petitioned the Austin City Council to send cease and desist letters to the ride-sharing service ahead of the yearly South by Southwest Festival. Sidecar took advantage of the publicity, offering rides for free to spite city regulators. But later, and I love this because there's so few people that get to be in charge of businesses that will actually stand up to government. Because they don't really let you be in charge of an open, regulated business if you're not willing to bend over and fill out the paperwork and pay the taxes and so on and so forth. But later in 2013, it had basically ceased operations. It's trying to petition the city council to reconsider via petition, and local business leaders have asked the council to change its mind, but there's no progress yet. Same thing in Seattle. They're saying they're limiting each company to 150 passengers/drivers on the road at once. Hey, if it made sense, it wouldn't be government. Minneapolis is banning any Lyft drivers who do not file for a taxi cab license. And I mean, the cabbies are actually going out and protesting in the streets. I kind of want to go. I mean, these are the kind of protests I love to go and troll and talk to them and be like, really? You're asking the government to point guns at people for doing what you're doing if they don't pay off government. Okay. Just got that straight. I mean, that's the insanity. That's the shamefulness of the people who participate in this racket. They're trying to ban the services in Vegas and DC and Chicago and Cambridge, all the places where people are operating these, paid carpools. So you're now facing the risk. If you do this, you might just have your car impounded. You might just have your property stolen just for offering your fellow human beings a legitimate service. In San Francisco, city officials and taxicab drivers were eyeing a knockout blow to the carpoolers. As supervisor, this is city supervisor John Avalo said, "We've gotten to almost a crisis mode. We cannot let the taxicab industry fail." Yeah. Do you hear this? Like, it's not the government letting the taxi industry fail. It's becoming obsolete because free, peaceful people have figured out something better. Can you imagine that? Now, of course, they've got their rallying cry. The New Year's Eve incident in San Francisco where a 6-year-old was struck and killed by an Uber driver. Well, if a car killed a kid, it must have been the application in the driver's pocket that wasn't even in use at the time that was responsible. So let's ban it. Yeah. Government has no more important responsibility. This is from the Checker Cab company of Atlanta, Georgia. CEO writes, "Government has no more important responsibility than to provide for public safety, and because many of our laws are for this purpose, including regulations covering vehicles for hire, because there is a clear potential for harm to life and limb when individuals are transported in automobiles by strangers, the reasons for regulating vehicles for hire, such as taxi cabs and limousines, are obvious and crucial." Really? I mean, I hope I don't have to say anything more here. I mean, this is like they're making carpooling illegal. As the article says, after all, what about a roommate who gives you money for a ride to the grocery store? What about a group of friends who pool their money to go to a concert? If app-connected carpooling is illegal, aren't those people also breaking the law? Well, that's what happens when government goes after peaceful people trying to provide legitimate services. You end up with a monopoly. Services are too expensive, limited, hard to come by, so on and so forth. And that's the taxi cab industry, the taxi racket, now coming to an end. At a Bitcoin conference in San Francisco recently, Mark Andreessen, who happens to be a pretty famous entrepreneur, he was involved in the first widely used web browser, Netscape, and he's been involved in a lot of other ventures, and he's made a lot of money. He's been a big venture capitalist, and he's one of the cheerleaders of Bitcoin, and I'm grateful for that. I think that's really exciting, and you see Bitcoin being attacked in the news all the time. You see the mainstream economic pundits saying that, it's not real money, or as Warren Buffett said, it's a mirage, or, its instability means it's not money, or, it's not safe. And, of course, like any emerging technology, it's going to have challenges. But, hey, we hit $1,000 Bitcoins. They're pretty stable now at about $500 each, and only going up from here. But I'll hold my predictions on Bitcoin in particular because it's not about Bitcoin. It's about the technology. It's about the core ideas behind it, that you can have a cryptocurrency. It might not be Bitcoin. In fact, my money is that it's not going to be Bitcoin. It's going to be some other form of cryptocurrency that ends up being the new money for the world, or some, who knows, maybe some basket of cryptocurrencies. But Andreessen at this conference had some really interesting things to say, especially about Warren Buffett's critique of Bitcoin being a mirage. Quote, "The historical track record of old white men crapping on your technology who don't understand your technology is pretty much 100%. And the crowd goes wild. Woo! It's these old, stodgy old white men. Yeah, screw them. They don't get our new Bitcoin technology." Could it possibly be that in the next sentence, Mark revealed himself to be such an old white man? Listen to this. "I don't know how you get a fringe technology without fringe people and politics. You just need to go through a maturation process where the technology emerges as mainstream at the other end. Along the way, the fringe politics will move on." Here he was speaking specifically about libertarians, predicting, here again, another quote, "My prediction is that libertarians are going to turn on Bitcoin. That'll be in about 2 years when it'll be mainstream." Oh, Mark. You see, technology is not about ones and zeros or pieces of metal or rockets to Mars or fast cars or anything like that. No. Technology is about ideas and concepts. And you're saying that this concept of cryptocurrency is going to go away, that cryptocurrency is going to become the main thing, but libertarianism is just going to go away. Like, did you not realize that libertarianism is the new technology of social organization? That this idea that, hey, guess what? We can organize society without violence is a new idea, and you're an old white man crapping on it who doesn't understand it? You think that libertarianism is destined to be on the fringe? The fastest growing political movement in America that is now starting to be mainstream isn't going to be dragging cryptocurrencies along with it? No. But it's okay, Mark. You're right. The historical track record of old white men crapping on your technology who don't understand your technology is pretty much 100%. And people like you have been crapping on libertarianism for a long time. But just like cryptocurrency, it is an idea whose time has come. Nobody wakes up to this idea that you can do things peacefully better than violently, and then abandons it and goes back to sleep. Just like with cryptocurrency itself, the cat's out of the bag, and old white men will continue to crap on new technology until it simply runs them over and becomes the mainstream. Our next guest today is Josie Wales, Josie the Outlaw, and a good friend of mine. Been really exciting to see how she has launched her career as a YouTuber. Josie from Philadelphia is a writer and a lifelong advocate for true freedom. And when I say this, I'm really not exaggerating at all. She first marched on Washington, D.C. when she was 4 years old. Her website is josietheoutlaw.com, so you can find out what she's up to and see her videos. And it's a really cool website. It's really slick. We're going to put the link in here and make sure that you guys get a chance to check it out. But there's something else that I want to get a chance to talk to Josie about, because holy crap, if I could get her kind of views in a short period of time and subscribership, we'd be a lot further along with Adam versus the Man. And there's something incredible about her YouTube. I don't know if it's really the debut, but certainly of her channel having struck a major chord, especially with law enforcement officers. Josie, thanks for joining us today.
Hi, Adam. How are you?
Outstanding. Really appreciate you coming on.
Thanks.
And
Thanks for having me on. It's very exciting.
I can't say congratulations enough. As someone who can appreciate your production standards and the well thought out nature of the material that you present and your success on YouTube, really, congratulations. What do you think is behind this?
Well, I think that obviously there's been a major shift in consciousness, and now people are a lot more willing to think about these things. And I think a lot of research goes into these videos. I was actually just speaking to someone about this who just started watching the videos and had a couple questions about them. And I think what's the most important is that during the process of writing these, there's a debate. We'll write the video and then almost have a debate as if we'll play devil's advocate and say, well, what if someone comes back with this, and what if someone challenges you on this? So I try to answer every question in the video before we release it, so that when it's out there, there's not much left to debate. Of course, there will be some things. There's always something to debate, but a lot of research goes into this, and it's backed up by facts, not just opinion.
Well, this is more than research, and that's really interesting the way that you point that out. It's a thoroughness of the methodology of presenting the message. I mean, is that a fair way of summing it up?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, there's a reason we release a video every couple weeks, and it's because when it's written, we go back and forth, and it's Larkin Rose and I that work together, and he's been doing this for 18 years, so he has experience with debating people who have a very strong hold on their faith in the state. So it's actually a really great pairing. I've always believed these things, and and I always joke around about how I never read his book, but we somehow had the same ideas, and we say the same things at the same times, and we learn from each other. But I think it's his experience with things that I miss, coupled with maybe a fresher approach to it that kind of makes it successful.
Well, there's something else I really want to get into with you, which is the response from law enforcement. And maybe to give people a sense of the subject matter of your videos that really hooks in the minds of cops. Can you give us an example of some maybe some good emails you've gotten or stories you've heard, or I know you've had some personal interactions with officers who've recognized you from your videos, right?
Absolutely, yeah. There was one that I will never ever forget, and it was at the Great Outdoor Conference in Harrisburg, and we were just walking around. I was there with the Oath Keepers. And we were walking around and just kind of looking at different booths, and a gentleman stopped and asked if my name was Josie and if I made a video of, yelling at cops. And I said, I just kind of braced for the worst, and I said, yeah, that was me.
Wait, hold on. I got to interrupt here. Hold on. When you say yelling at cops, what was that referring to?
No, he was about the video. Did you make that YouTube video? And
right.
He was kind of he was being a little bit sarcastic, so okay. I didn't know if he was gonna mess with me or give me a hard time. I was preparing to be kind of either reprimanded or lectured.
So wait. So why would he characterize it that way? Well, for people who have never seen your videos, why would a cop say, "Oh, you made a video about yelling at cops, huh?"
Well, what I do is in the video, I basically take them through. It's a religious term, but it's what I do. I take them through basically an examination of conscience and ask them where they'll draw their line, and with the way. With the tyranny in this country and the police officers being used to enforce that, there are police officers doing things that are just beyond reprehensible, and it goes unpunished. It's with impunity. So I basically just kind of go through and talk about the ridiculous things that people do get beaten, killed, and arrested for, like dancing at the Jefferson Memorial, I happen to mention. That's the gist of it. It's a long video, but that's basically what I do.
And this gentleman's reaction?
He bear hugged me and thanked me and told me that he's a state trooper and that he sent the videos out to, sent the video to a lot of his buddies, and, he asked to take a picture, and so that was a good response. I do get obviously negative.
Well, can you give us an example of one of those?
Sure. Just it's usually the same, and it's mostly in YouTube comments. I don't get very many negative emails. The emails are usually positive.
No, I've noticed this too. Hate is very casual and off the cuff. And if you read YouTube comments, just the people that are like, oh, well, I'm going to talk trash because I'm right here, I'm watching this, I'm just going to start typing. It's very low psychological threshold. But if it's, oh, I'm going to send an email. And by the way, you'll get some negative emails too, and I'm sure you have already. But you see how even just that effort of going, oh, I'm going to click into another tab, and I'm going to go into my email, and I'm going to cut and paste her email address and put this in her inbox. It's like, forget the hate. There's like 90% of the hate on the internet does not clear that threshold, does not clear that hurdle of effort to be worth communicating. And yet there's this massive pile of hate on the internet and flame crap. So please continue.
Yeah, it is. It's a knee-jerk emotional reaction, and it's this immediate anger that they have to voice via keyboard immediately. And 9 times out of 10, it's if who's going to protect you if we're not here, and you have no idea what we're doing, and we're putting our lives on the line, and there are the occasional just obscenities, and just some of them are just, I'm like, I don't know what you're trying to say, but that's a lot of bad words.
Okay, so back to the positive stuff, if I may, because you got thanked for this, for putting, for what is really putting an officer on the spot and forcing them to examine their conscience, to go through that. And a lot of times libertarians, they wake up to the message and they don't have any cops in their life, perhaps, or they see, just like so many other Americans, we see videos of police brutality online every day. There's always some crazy new incident. And you think, okay, these are the guys that have no conscience. These are the guys that have sold their conscience to the state, and they will do whatever they are paid to do, regardless of whether or not it's moral. And that's not wholly inaccurate, but it's also very, very incomplete. And the response to your videos would suggest a completely different model or attitude, or even approach to officers that shows that we as a movement have something to offer them, that they are looking for, that they are grateful for, that these are poor people to be pitied who are stuck in this emotional conflict with this cognitive dissonance, who end up doing bad things because they haven't had the gift that someone like you has shared with them.
Well, yeah, that's what I learned. I went through a process of, hating all cops, and I'm not hating all cops. I have a lot of police officers in my own family. I went through that anger phase of screaming at them, and then of being sarcastic with them, and then of making fun of them. And then slowly I started to be more, I guess, a little bit more compassionate, and just started asking questions. and started treating, and started realizing that there are human beings who have been told a certain thing and who believe that it is us versus them, and some of them even believe that they are 100% protecting us when they're pulling us over and giving us tickets. So it's in order for them to be receptive to this message, we have to be somewhat gentle and understanding.
How do you think they would articulate it? What if you could? And I want to invite you to indulge in a certain amount of presumption here that you can speak for all cops, right? Based on your understanding from the interactions that you've had as a result of your YouTube videos. If you were, speaking on behalf of all cops or a cop or whatever it is that you imagine has this mentality, who hasn't heard your message but would greatly appreciate it, what would someone like that, or what would cops say to the freedom movement to say, help us out?
Oh, I honestly, I would say that they would, if I were a cop, okay. First of all, I would explain that they're all human beings. I would try to tell them to convince other people to treat them as human beings who are capable of change and not just, just mindless beasts, because they're not. Trying to think to help us. I guess that would be it. It would definitely not. That's the only way we could really help. Complying isn't going to do it.
Well, no, that really says a lot. Just what you said right there, because if you say if your attitude towards an officer is you're a human being, and if you're a human being doing an evil thing, the response should not be hatred, but pity, and an attempt to reach out and help them with that. And I think your videos, while perhaps a little more direct and a little less touchy-feely than that, certainly have had a really incredible positive effect of changing the relationship between libertarians and law enforcement, if that's not too broad and presumptuous a way of stating it. But I really appreciate the impact that your work has had on this. And I'm glad you went through all of those earlier processes of anger before you started making YouTube videos.
Yeah, I got a lot of my system. I think it has to happen, though, because you have to get angry to want to really do something about it.
Awesome. Thank you so much for joining us, ladies and gentlemen. Josie, the Outlaw Wales, josietheoutlaw.com. Let's talk about the Fort Hood shooting, because we didn't really get into it. There are a lot of stories that we missed while I was in jail or off the air, but this one from last week is certainly ripe. So there was another shooting last week at Fort Hood, and the headline is, Fort Hood shooter showed no suicidal tendencies, U.S. Army says, at least from Reuters. And, you always have to question the propaganda and the spin that comes out of this. And it's a tragedy like any other, and we got to, wring our hands. But the emotional response that people have to this makes them vulnerable. And maybe now, a few days later, we can step back and we can look at this and take try to get something actually useful out of this one. Can we America, please? Can we have a mass shooting that doesn't result in nothing more than emotional confusion and conflict and pain and frustration with the situation, with government, with everything else? I mean, can we learn something for once? Because I think here, we have so many takeaways, and it's not just, guns are good, guns are bad, and it's, we could fall back on all the cliches and all of the arguments of, well, if an armed society is a polite society, if someone was there, they could have stopped the shooter and so on. And these fundamental truths are out there, but this is a guy who was being treated for depression and anxiety, 34-year-old Ivan Lopez. U.S. Army Secretary John McHugh said the soldier who joined in 2008 had served 2 tours of duty abroad, including 4 months in Iraq in 2011. No direct combat experience, was not wounded. As McHugh said already before a U.S. Senate committee hearing, quote, he was undergoing a variety of treatment and diagnoses for mental health conditions, ranging from depression to anxiety to some sleep disturbance. He was prescribed a number of drugs to address those, including Ambien. So we had some remarks from Barack Obama, because this is what does this represent? Does this represent a threat to people at Fort Hood? I mean, yeah, but the Army there is going to deal with it. Does it represent a threat to you as an average American? No, but it's a major story that has some emotional implications, and it has a really a deep impact psychologically as a tragedy, because it's a soldier. It's a guy on active duty who killed other active duty troops, who killed himself. And so the reason we have to have Obama come in and as the great, daddy of the country say, we've got everything under control, is that the root causes of all these shootings have to be obscured. We have to ignore them. We have to push them under the rug. We have to not address the core problems. And the emotional indulgence that the commander-in-chief provides at a time like this is there specifically in order to keep people from really questioning. But all you have to do is read his words and think, read between the lines a little bit. This is Obama's statement following the shooting at Fort Hood. Hello, everybody. I just got off the phone with Vice Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, Sandy Winnefeld, to get the latest report on the situation in Fort Hood. Obviously, we're following it closely. The situation is fluid right now, but the situation is fluid. It's like, no, the guy killed himself. It's over. Like, the situation is not fluid. This is one of those propaganda lines like, oh, it's really complicated. Better have government step in. Oh, hey, we got to... No, it's... People are dead. We know what happened. By the time Obama said this, most Americans who were looking at the story already knew more than he pretended to. But my national security team is in close contact with not just the Defense Department, but the FBI. They are working with folks on the ground to determine exactly what happened to make sure that everybody is secure. And I want to just assure all of us that we're going to get to the bottom of exactly what happened. Okay, well, here's where it helps to remember how to tell if a politician is lying. If their lips are moving. So he just wants to assume that we're going to get to the bottom. No, we're not. We're already at the bottom, America. We've heard this before. We've seen this. This is not the first time. And when he says, we're going to make sure that everybody is secure. No, the hell you're not. That's not what you do. You put people in danger in order to keep the protection racket going. If everybody was secure, you'd be out of a job. If you weren't there creating crime and violence and conflict, you wouldn't have an excuse to steal people's money through taxation. This isn't about keeping people secure or safe in any way. Any shooting is troubling. Obviously, this reopens the pain of what happened at Fort Hood 5 years ago. Did you do anything to change it since then? Did you look at psychology in the Army? I mean, Major Hassan was a psychiatrist. Did you do anything about veteran suicide as an epidemic? Did you do anything about PTSD or combat stress or the fact that you're sending troops back into war zones on psych meds? Hell no. This reopens the pain of what happened 5 years ago. Not the thinking, not the rational analysis of what we're going to do is carrying people to actually do something about. No, just the pain. We want you to indulge in that pain. We feel your pain. And if you just keep voting and giving us half your income, we'll keep feeling your pain. We won't do anything to make you safe. We'll say we will. We'll pretend we will. But no, we'll just keep taking your money in order to keep screwing you over. We know these families. We know their incredible service to our country and the sacrifices that they make. Obviously, our thoughts and prayers are with the entire community. And we are going to do everything we can to make sure that the community at Fort Hood has what it needs to deal with the current situation, but also any potential aftermath. Right. We're heartbroken that something like this might have happened again. Yeah. Oh, we're so heartbroken. We didn't do anything about it for 5 years, but now we're really heartbroken again. Yeah. And I don't want to comment on the facts until I know exactly what has happened. But for now, I would just hope that everybody across the country is keeping the families in the community at Fort Hood in our thoughts and in our prayers. Don't do anything rational. Just think about it. Yeah. Your thoughts and your prayers. Oh yeah, that's going to do something. Yeah, let's just think about that pain. Let's just pray to God, to bring them back to life, to make sure that never happened, to make sure that it doesn't happen again. No, how about we, do something to make sure that it doesn't happen again? The folks there have sacrificed so much on behalf of our freedom. Oh, really? Now, there's something about these kinds of shootings that statists love, really. If you're a statist, if you believe that government is good and essential for keeping us safe, for protecting our rights, then a shooting like this, while a tragedy, while it causes some emotional pain and perhaps raises the cognitive dissonance that I'm pointing out here, it's good for you. Yeah, think about it. If human nature is good, and we are generally good people, and in our natural state, we don't go around snapping and shooting people at random, then maybe we don't need government to protect us. If in the absence of organized, forceful violence and coercion, which is what government is, interpersonal violence and coercion is much easier to deal with, is much smaller, is much less significant. And already we've advanced over the millennia to the point where today we are living in the most peaceful times in human history. You are less likely now to be subject to violence at the hands of another human being than ever before. That's an incredible, beautiful thing to be celebrated. Governments like it when these shootings happen because it reinforces statism. The most important presumption of statism is that people are dangerous and unpredictable and unreliable, and therefore we need violent, dangerous, unpredictable liars like Barack Obama to be in charge of society. Many of the people there have been on multiple tours in Iraq and Afghanistan. He's bragging about overseeing this organized violence, and you're surprised that another shooting has happened. They serve with valor. They serve with distinction. And when they're at their home base, they need to feel safe. All right, so we're going to keep keeping them disarmed, right? Yeah. We don't yet know what happened tonight, but obviously the sense of safety has been broken once again, and we're going to have to find out exactly what happened. The Pentagon will undoubtedly have further briefings for you as we get more details about what happened. Now, really, you think in this day and age, they don't know? You think Obama doesn't know why the shooting happened? He knows exactly why it happened. He knew why it happened before it happened. But he sure loves that it did. Our last guest today is none other than Mike Adams, activist turned scientist now, but more than that, still an incredible health activist, someone whose personal story is what launched his career, a very, very exciting story that we've covered on Adam versus the Man before. He is the Health Ranger, the editor of Natural News, a science-based natural health advocacy organization. And more than just all this stuff I could rattle off about naturalnews.com, about how they talk about empowering consumers with choices about synthetic chemicals, heavy metals, hormone disruptor stuff found in foods, medicines, personal care products, children's toys, and all that. It goes on. Holistic health, nutritional therapies, consciousness and spirituality, permaculture, organics, animal rights, environmental health, food and superfoods, performance nutrition, all of this. And calling out the medical establishment, and there are a lot of people in the liberty movement doing that, right? There are a lot of people who go, hey, guess what? The government is protecting the medical industry, the pharmaceutical industry, but no one really is holding down this most important corner of the movement like Mike Adams and naturalnews.com. Mike, thanks so much for joining us today.
Hello, Adam. Thank you for having me on. It's a great honor to be on your show. I'm so happy that your show is rocking and you are rocking. I mean, it's great to have your voice, really.
Well, I really appreciate that, and I think having you on for this first episode is certainly very appropriate. But more than going into everything that Natural News is about, I think everybody really, I cannot endorse your site stronger than saying when I have questions, when I'm going for myself, like when I'm trying to organize my own diet or my own lifestyle, naturalnews.com is an incredible resource. But I really want to talk about some of the new work that you've been doing, and to me, and please forgive me if I out of my ignorance of exactly what you're doing in your lab. Maybe downplay this just a little bit, but you started as an activist. You're really self-trained, correct? I mean, you had your own health issues that you taught yourself about with your weight and things related to that. And it's sort of like any kid with a chemistry set could go and test their food and be like, hey guys, look, there's stuff in this, but you are now doing this because you continuing your self-driven, self-taught activism. You're going, okay, well, we need a lab. We need to figure this out. We need to be providing this valuable consumer information. And you just started doing it. tell us about first
Yeah.
that process of how you expanded your operation to not just being an activist and a news processor and an information presenter, but you are legitimately doing original scientific research now that is providing credible, valuable consumer information.
Well, this really came down to the question of how does the global system control people's minds? Believe it or not, that's what started this lab. Because as I began to do the research, and I would find there are chemicals such as fluoride that we know scientifically lowers IQs. But it turns out there are also heavy metals. We know that lead lowers IQs. Lead actually gives you a kind of soft lobotomy. It dumbs you down, and mercury does the same thing. Mercury is a potent neurotoxin, and it's still used in flu shots. And so part of what you were just describing before, the system out there doesn't want citizens who can think for themselves, who can gain awareness, who can expand their mind, their consciousness, and their understanding, and come to new conclusions about revolutionary ideas. They don't want that. It's just like comedian George Carlin says, they want you to be obedient workers. So to do that, they dumb you down. Chemicals are introduced into the system through multiple vectors. Fluoride through the water supply, obviously, but heavy metals through food, mind-altering chemicals through pharmaceuticals, and the fake promotion of ADHD as a disease. So I decided that I was going to scientifically study heavy metals in foods and expose the truth about this, including heavy metals in certified organic foods, superfoods, herbal supplements, dietary supplements, and even conventional non-organic foods as well. So I spent about a year. I went under intense training. I hired high-level analytical chemists from around the country to train me. And I had a strong scientific background, so I could kind of handle this. We spent about $1 million. We built an atomic spectroscopy laboratory with ICP-MS instrumentation. That's inductively coupled plasma mass spectrometry. It's just that one instrument is about $250,000.
Sorry, I couldn't understand that terminology you were using. There's too much lead in my brain. I'm sorry. You just break it down a little.
Well, it's basically, if you go to a university laboratory, they will have the same setup that we built. If you go to the FDA's laboratory, what they test with is what we use in our laboratory. So we have fume hoods, we use acid digestion, oxidation techniques, we use auto-samplers. We have several different instruments, including the ICP-MS. But I'm not going to get into the details, but the point is that I run this lab, and we now produce world-class original research. We were the first to find the heavy metal tungsten in certified organic rice protein supplement. And when we publicized that, the industry immediately responded and shifted to clean up their product. So ultimately what we're doing is trying to test off-the-shelf products, show what's in them, get manufacturers to clean up their products so that we can get the lead out of people's heads and hopefully contribute to waking people up to what's really going on in this world.
All right, now, Mike, I got to raise the statist objection here, because I know we have some statists in the audience, and I can hear them thinking right now, going, "Whoa, wait a second. I drink the fluoride water. I brush my teeth with fluoridated toothpaste. I eat mainstream commercial canned fish, and I get all my food from the grocery store down the street, and it all comes perfectly wrapped in clean plastic packaging, and I huff glue for fun. I mean, it's legal. It's not an illegal drug. There's nothing wrong. I'm not dumb. What's wrong? What are you talking about? How is it that we were being dumb? Look how many smart people there are in the world. I know I'm kind of being funny with that, but the serious question is, to someone who's skeptical about this and says, "You're okay. So what? I'm losing 1% of one IQ point, and I get to not worry about all this crap. Really,
No,
why is this important?"
It's a massive drop in cognitive function and awareness. There was a study recently published that showed that if you just eat fish a couple of times a week contaminated with mercury, if your blood mercury level rises to over 14 micrograms per liter of the blood circulating in your body, you suffer severe cognitive decline, reduced problem-solving capacity. So it is, in truth, and I know you've seen this, Adam, you've been around people who seem brain dead, and you've also seen genius innovators as well. You see that there's something wrong in society today. The masses are literally lobotomized. You got to ask, how can how can people get into the White House who are destroying the very freedoms upon which this country was based? It's because the voters can't think clearly across the board. I know there are exceptions. There are amazing pioneers and great thinkers that still exist today.
Okay, hold on. You know, I'm with you. Everything you're saying is great, but I gotta hone in on this one point here because I'm sorry, I'm still the dumb average statist, and I'm not convinced to even listen to you yet. I'm just like, oh, this guy's telling me I'm dumb and I need. Fuck that. You know, like I'm smart enough. I figured out how to vote for Obama. You know, like how do you and I think there's a lot of validity to your point. You can't wake people up to liberty if they're so dumb that government propaganda is extremely effective based on emotional appeals because their capacity for rational thought is diminished. I get that. It makes total sense. But how do you convince them in the first place that they are dumbed down? How do you and I think of myself and that my own sort of health self-awareness has really fluctuated, right? There are times when, I'm working out every day and I'm eating off a spreadsheet and, I'm all my healthy food and I'm drinking tons of water every day. And then I have like one bad meal and I go, whoa, and it, you can feel it. And then, but most of the time I'm not that tuned in to my own body. I'm not that, hypersensitive. And I understand. So I know what it's like. I've been a professional athlete, barely, but I know what it's like. And most Americans and just in the lifestyle are totally detached from all that. How do you break through that in the first place and get them to listen to you?
Usually it comes only after a health crisis that they experience. Until that happens, they don't listen. And that's why most of my audience is people generally over the age of 30 because they grew up on junk foods and processed foods like I did. And then they hit a health crisis. They hit a brick wall. And they realize, hey, what I'm eating, what my doctor is telling me, all these pharmaceuticals I'm taking, they're not working. And so they wake up and they start to explore. And then it takes a long time for them to open up to it. And by the way, there's a huge segment of the population that will never get this. They won't wake up. They're too brain damaged. They are literally brain damaged beyond reach. We can't reach those people. There's only a certain segment that we can reach. But we're doing the best we can to wake people up to restore their brain function. I don't know about you, but I believe that human beings are born as amazing geniuses, that we have amazing capacity to learn, to innovate, to be creative, to solve problems.
Yep.
That is systematically suppressed by design. And it feeds right into the agenda of people like Edward Bernays, who were appealing to the emotional side, the irrational side that you just talked about. They want to shut down your cognition, and they want to have society running the masses based on nothing but emotional reactions to puppets, to theater in Washington that controls the way you feel while shutting down what you think. That's the real truth.
So you mentioned your first example here, organic rice. I thought I could just, if it had organic slapped on it, I was good. It's not true?
Not true at all. Now, fortunately, we tested organic rice from California. It was super clean, very clean. But organic rice that's coming out of Asian nations such as China, we found it to contain very significant levels of lead, cadmium, some levels of mercury, but also high levels of tungsten, another industrial heavy metal. So just because it says organic doesn't mean it's clean. Depends on where it's grown. The USDA organic program sets no limits whatsoever, Adam, on heavy metals contamination. And I think in many cases, organic certification of some foods grown in China is a complete fraud. So and I use that term specifically, deliberately.
Yeah, well, and in a lot of ways within the United States, the entire food labeling system is a fraud, right?
I think in many cases it is. Food manufacturers go to great lengths to hide chemicals using deceptive words and terminology on their labels. For example, the coloring that goes into strawberry yogurt is made from crushed up female beetles. It's a red beetle juice, but it's called carmine or carmine. No one would read the word carmine and say that's beetle juice. No, but it actually is beetle juice. I don't want you to know that.
Okay, all right. So, well, for me then, for someone who I'm sold. I understand how many people out there are trying to take advantage of the ignorance of others. I understand the importance of only putting what your body was designed to take into it. I understand the idea of having a brain that is not overly that is not stifled by heavy metals. That's so but I still got to make this practical trade-off, right? I don't want to. I mean, I don't have $1 million to start a lab. I don't have all the vast knowledge that you do. I don't have the resources to say just, oh yeah, throw in a nice garden and a couple pigs in my backyard and some chickens and I'm good to go. And I think that's the idea. And if anything, I think technology and everything else is getting us towards that and making those things easier, making home food production more important. But to someone let's just say someone who's not capable of that, what's your practical answer? Because if you tell me, I gotta do all this research. I got to get all my food from farmers markets, and so on and so on. And even food from farmers markets. Now I got to test it for heavy metals, or I got to worry about this. What are the practical guidelines?
Here's a simple answer. If you go to the grocery store and just buy fresh produce, carrots and potatoes, vegetables and fruits, fresh produce and whole grains, and you make your meals out of that, you're going to be in very good shape. Even if you organic or not, you're still going to be in much better shape in terms of heavy metals. For example, the highest...
Hold on, you're saying compared to processed and packaged foods?
Exactly, okay. Compared to processed and packaged foods, because processing tends to concentrate toxins while removing nutrients.
Okay.
So processed food can be more toxic. Even processed organic, natural foods can be more toxic. And I got to say, Adam, since I started blowing the whistle on this, I've been a long-time advocate of the natural products industry, but since I've been blowing the whistle on this, there have been certain groups within the industry that are trying to dismiss what I'm saying. There's believe it or not, there's a cover-up inside the organics industry where they don't want you to know the total truth, even though they're complaining about other cover-ups.
Believe it or not, I would be surprised if this was not happening, Mike. I mean, come on, this is you're talking about corporate America here.
Yeah. That's exactly right. But to answer your question, potatoes are the things that we found with the highest level of lead of all the fresh produce, and even it was tiny. It was only 1/10 the level of lead that we found in rice protein. So you could eat potatoes all day long, and you could eat 10 pounds of potatoes, you would get the same amount of lead in 1 pound of rice protein. And most foods are far lower than that if they're fresh. So
hold on a second. About rice, are you talking specifically about the rice from China or general rice?
Asian,
okay.
Rice from Asia, correct.
Okay.
Now, I don't know, why don't these companies buy rice grown in Texas or rice grown in California? It's really clean.
Wait, the answer is obvious. It's because you have to pay people more to harvest it and work it and process it in America. So they go to China where it's cheaper.
Exactly. That's exactly it. And again, Obamacare, this healthcare mandate system, it makes it impossible for many small businesses, even agricultural companies, to pay wages and pay the health insurance premiums, which are a monopolistic fraud price-fixing system, but they can't afford to pay that to grow food in the United States that's cleaner, that would support U.S. farmers. So they offshore these jobs to Asia and China, and as a result, we all get poisoned by the heavy metals that are in many of these foods across the board. So we get harmed economically, we get harmed biologically, biochemically, and as a result, we suffer job loss and brain loss because of these policies. This is part of what's destroying our nation, our civilization here in North America. The United States of America won't survive this if we don't change, Adam. I truly believe that.
Well, about that, I swear I did not plan on raising this subject, but it actually occurred to me as we were having this conversation, because I'm so excited that you have a lab, that the Health Ranger operation now includes a lab that is capable of doing all this. And the subject that I said I really didn't plan on bringing up was we've had one public disagreement in the past. I don't know if you remember this. This is a big deal, and it's something that I'm very passionate about, and nothing, of course, that I would ever hold against you. But when GMO labeling, especially in California here, was a major issue, I think it was about 2 years ago, you were a big proponent of getting government-mandated GMO labeling. And, there's a fair conversation you can have there about, is turning to the government good or not? And I was saying, don't turn to government, just turn to the corporate, support the people that you want to support. And, we don't need a coercive solution here. Whether or not, and I'm not one of these libertarians who's like, oh, anytime you turn to government, it's wrong. No, they have monopolies on certain things. You got to drive on government roads. And if your interpretation of that is, well, let's turn to them for help with labeling. But the suggestion that I had then was, well, why don't we have a private entity or a nonviolent entity that is not controlled by the government, that has a laboratory and has maybe someone really smart in charge of it who doesn't have any lead in his brain, who's really objective and is capable of analyzing all these things and has a vast body of knowledge and an incredible awareness of the industry. Perhaps someone like you, Mike, could come up with your own system. And, if I was an organic food producer, I would want the Health Ranger stamp of approval. Is that in the works?
I'm really glad you brought this up, and I've thought long and hard about this same topic as well. And on heavy metals, we have in fact preempted the government. We are doing what the government refuses to do. The FDA will set no limits on heavy metals. Even the USDA sets no limits, even though the Canadian government has strict limits, for example, or the EU, of course, has lots of limits, probably far too many. But the U.S. government really won't take action on this, so we have preempted them. We've done what the FDA maybe should have done, but refused to do because of their ties to industry. But I've thought long and very carefully about where is it appropriate, if anywhere, for government intervention into coercion, as you say, coercion to force companies to do things. And like you, I think that in almost every case, coercion is wrong. And that it is, when you are dealing with force, and you've seen the government use force against home gardeners, force against raw milk people like James Stewart in California. When the government is given that power, they almost always abuse it in almost every case. But I've thought that, like you, there must be a better alternative, but somebody has got to keep these companies honest about two basic things. Number one is labeling of food products so we know what we're eating. I am a huge proponent of honest labeling, but I don't think it necessarily has to be government. And the second thing is the environmental pollution of corporations that would pollute our nation, like China is polluted now by their companies, unless they were somehow forced to stop polluting. I'm not a big fan of the EPA's overreaching power, but we have to figure out some way to keep these companies in check on their pollution, or we'll all be overrun with so many toxic chemicals. The rivers will flow with heavy metals and chemicals if we don't have some kind of a system in place. So I'm still thinking about it, Adam. I don't know the perfect solution, but in the meantime, I'm using my lab to spread the word about what's really in your food.
And raising so much awareness, and that really is the foundation of this. I'm so grateful that you're doing the work that you're doing. I've benefited from it myself in my own life, for my own health. And, for that, I can't thank you enough. And I know there are millions of people who would say the same thing.
You too, Adam. Thank you for you and your work and for having me on your show. Take care then.
All right. It's exciting to see you grow your business. Thanks so much for joining us. Ladies and gentlemen, Mike Adams, the Health Ranger, naturalnews.com. Let's just have some chats with the audience in case anybody's still here tuning in live. I know we've got some people on Skype who've sent me some messages here, probably saying, hey, we can't hear the audio from the Skype guests. But we will have that fixed for tomorrow, we promise. Jacob Kelly writes, hi, Adam Kokesh. I'm organizing a smoke down prohibition in Youngstown, Ohio. Member of Youngstown Normal want to promote our event. Oh, he's calling now and talk about liberty and other stuff. Thanks, Jacob. Jake, sorry. Hey, we're gonna be able to take calls tomorrow and get more of that. So let's see. Contact requests. We don't need contact requests. All you got to do is send me a chat directly. Howdy, Adam. If this is RRR. If there is any part of the voluntarist anarcho-capitalist philosophy you struggle with? I personally have issues with the concept of self-ownership, conflicting with my scientific/spiritual philosophy on a few levels, and I've never been able to reconcile them. Wow. You sure we don't have sound? We can't get this guy on? All right. This is a really huge topic. RRR, sir. I hope you'll call back in, or if you want to just chat with me if you're on, you can, if you're listening right now. I can't imagine though how a scientific or spiritual philosophy would somehow lead you away from self-ownership. Self-ownership is the unique gift of human consciousness. It is inherent to that. If you are an independent, conscious entity, you own yourself. Whatever it is that is attached to that goes with that, like that is the core of it. There's no way around that. And I know that sounds like, oh, I'm just dismissing it, but I've really, trust me, I've thought this one through. But how does, if anything, you say your scientific / spiritual philosophy. Well, if science is not a body of knowledge, but a process of analysis, of experimentation, of testing hypotheses, then the conclusion is still self-ownership. Now, if you get into the spiritual philosophy, here's where I see some potential for conflict. If your spiritual philosophy is, well, there's this, man in the sky who made all of heaven and the earth and he owns us. Okay, fine, nice idea. Still doesn't change the reality on the ground in the physical realm of you own yourself. As an independent conscious entity, that is just a feature of human life to enjoy and love and be celebrated. All right. Adam Fisher. Hey, I'm pretty confused as to how you got out of prison. Can you clarify the whole situation? Jeffrey, how did I get out of prison again? Well, no, it's a good question, and I ended up taking a plea deal, and it really broke my heart to do it. I was bullied into a corner. I didn't want to. I wanted to be able to fight the case on constitutional grounds, but this is how government works, and I feel like it was really naive of me in going and loading a shotgun in D.C. to think, oh, yes, and then they're going to knock on your door and they're going to arrest you and they're going to call you in politely and say, come in for your constitutional court hearing and let's have a proper evaluation of whether or not these laws are constitutional. No, it doesn't really work that way. So I took a plea deal and I got sentenced as time served, and I'm still dealing with the consequences in Virginia from all of this. So I might end up going back for a little while, but don't worry, we're better organized this time. Joshua Blackburn, welcome to La La Land. Do you know this? Do you know Joshua? No? Welcome to La La Land from a fellow anarcho-transplant. Did he just coin a new word? Anarcho-transplant? Does that mean we have to have anarcho-transplantism? Yeah, okay. Just setting things up in case I might have something to contribute sometime. Awesome, thank you. And Michael King, I'm a fellow veteran, have some questions on some of the harder areas of a free society. If you guys want to chat me right now, please feel free to send me a chat on Skype at Adam Kokesh. And Jacob says he can be on tomorrow. Great. We need to put this in the description on the webpage on /live, so it doesn't. We don't want people to send us contact requests, just chats. We don't need you to be a contact for us to call you. Hi, Adam. I'm Ivan from the And Vigilante, and I would be glad to be in your show to talk about the evolution of Anonymous, the Anons that are in jail, and my efforts to collect funds and create awareness from them, like this single or this campaign. That sounds great. Definitely want to take callers like that. Huge fan from Michigan, a supporter from Portugal. Holy crap! International audience for the live show. Love it. They don't have drug laws there. Yeah. Hold on, Stan. What do you need to do something? No. Okay. Jeremy Gessel. What science? Let the company do what they want without government influence. They would die out naturally. I guess I should wait until there's a functioning chat. All right. Anarcho-communism is not anarchy. It is decentralized communism. Oh, brilliant. Is that not? Again? What? You've heard that again? Oh, yeah. We said we were going to get away from that, right? But no. This is the ultimate answer, Jeffrey. I mean, we've been talking about this, and I think the conversation was, we want to, there are way more anarcho-capitalists than anarcho-communists or syndicalists or whatever else. And there's like this whole, well, can't anarcho-communists and anarcho-capitalists get along? And yeah, in a certain sense, in that we want abolition of big central government, or, and at least the anarcho-communists would say the only government should be local, but this really sums it up. If you're an anarcho-communist, you might have some understanding of government. You might have some desire for localization, but yeah, you're still advocating communism. Oh, that stuff was from last week. That was from the Colin show from Sunday. All right, that's why we're not getting that many chats now, because we're going into last week's stuff and we don't have everything on the air. Well, anyways, that's about all the time we have for today. Got a lot of exciting stories stacked up for tomorrow. And we just want to say thank you so much for joining us today on Adam versus the Man. It's great to be back. And I promise we'll have this audio issue figured out by tomorrow. Please send your love mail to adam@adamversustheman.com. If you're interested in joining us as an editorial intern, please join us. Send an email to adam@adamversustheman.com if you'd like to be a part of the process of working on guests and preparing stories for the show. We really appreciate it. It's I don't know. Follow me on Twitter. I'm supposed to go through I gotta re-engage my brain and relearn this stuff that I had all memorized before, just off the top of my head. Yeah, follow me on Twitter @Adam Kokesh, Facebook.com/Adam versus the Man, YouTube.com/Adam Kokesh. Sign up for the email list at AdamVersusTheMan.com. You can catch the show live at AdamVersusTheMan.com/live, 5 days a week from noon to 2 Pacific Standard Time, and call in on Skype starting tomorrow, we promise, at Adam Kokesh on Skype. How many libertarians does it take to screw in a light bulb? None. The market will take care of it. Cool, huh?